So I'd like to welcome everyone to the 2022 Herb Lockwood Prize presentation. This is the 9th year that this prize has been awarded to a Vermont artist. And for those not familiar with the Herb Lockwood Prize, I'm going to give you a quick summary. The Herb Lockwood Prize in the Arts was founded in 2014 by Todd Lockwood and some like-minded Vermonters. They felt that the arts community could benefit by bringing the state's most influential artists to the public's attention. Our little state has a lot to be proud of. As the idea of an arts prize began to emerge, Todd's late brother, Herb Lockwood, served as the model artist on which the prize was based. Herb was fluent in a breathtaking variety of art forms, but he is particularly remembered for his music. The Herb Lockwood Prize seeks to recognize artists of comparable creativity and influence, artists who not only produce exemplary work, but also inspire and encourage other artists, because that's what Herb Lockwood did. He encouraged other artists to push themselves and to take chances. Every year, the Herb Lockwood Prize goes about its business staying completely below the radar. There is no application process, and the artists have no idea they are even being considered for the prize, except for the one person each year who gets a surprise phone call. Burlington City Arts Foundation is honored to administer the prize, created through the generosity of private donors. This year, we'd like to thank the following donors who made the 2022 Herb Lockwood Prize possible. Todd Lockwood, of course, Stephen P. Kiernan, Lisa Schamberg and Pat Robbins, Martha Denny, Nat Winthrop, Charlie and Mima Tipper, and Deb and John Callow. We would also like to thank the Media Factory for providing professional video coverage of this event. And now I'd like to welcome one of Herb Lockwood's longtime friends to the podium, Melissa Chestnut Tangerman. Melissa and Herb's friendship began in 1977 at Hamilton College. After graduation in 1982, she was one of several musicians who followed Herb right here to Burlington. Please welcome Melissa Chestnut Tangerman.
Hi there. I think about Herb and I wonder what he would make of this world. He died pre-internet. I think he would embrace the wider sharing of music, but I'm not sure what he would make of its digitization and fragmentation. We made music together in an analog time, and though he of course dreamed of reaching many people with his amazing, beautiful work, I'm not sure he would be into what we've traded for worldwide reach. We had planned to live in a community where art was the purpose and connection the currency. In this dismally disconnected time we live in, I wonder, what would Herb make of this world? He would make art. He would respond with his whole generous soul. It's what he did in his short time here. And I can't imagine what his artistic response would be to the fracturing of our country. I'm sure it would be full and compelling and inspiring, but he's not here to respond, which is the unutterable loss to us. The man had so much to give. Herb made so much beautiful and original and brilliant music and pottery and wooden things and drawings, and he was a magnificent, adroit writer. Luckily for me, I was serving in Kenya as a Peace Corps volunteer for 3 of the 5 years of our friendship. And so I have real analog letters from our correspondence. Todd had asked me to share an anecdote or two from our time making music, but I'd rather share some of Herb's words. So this is from an early letter from him. You just left Burleytown, and my head is filled with words to write to you. Unfortunately, most of them are adverbs, and they probably would not make a good letter. For a change of pace, now all my clothes are full of sawdust. I have to move slowly so as not to stir up a pigpen cloud. This bookshelf project is my first commission, and I'm quickly learning why Tom doesn't make much money. So far, I've put close to 8 hours into just getting the wood ready to start working with. The construction is fairly simple and straightforward and brave, clean, and reverent. But finding good lumber, especially hardwood, is difficult. I had to settle for wood that wasn't wide enough, It was also warped and discolored. So it's taken me 8 working hours to get the wood relatively flat, glued, planed, and sanded. In a while, tomorrow, I'll build the shelves and hopefully never see them again. The worst part is that I charge $15 an hour, 5 of which goes to Tom for the use of his shop and tools. And by the time I'm done, on labor alone, these shelves will be worth over $300. The only problem is that they're not worth $300 and I will lose money. This is exactly what Tom has had to deal with for the last 10 years. What does one do instead? One starts up a line and makes lots and lots of something relatively easy to make and markets them to people who can be convinced that they are worth enough for a healthy profit to be realized. Starting up a line is the only way that Tom can continue to employ me. So what are we going to make? Well, I suggested wooden music stands, and Tom liked that idea. Then he suggested birdhouses, and we both really liked that idea. Then a big burly walked in and suggested gun stocks, and we all agreed that that was an excellent idea. Then a policeman walked in and suggested hand-turned nightsticks, and everyone enthusiastically agreed. Then a French chef came in and shouted, hand-carved peppermills. Before we could cheer our approval, a baseball player leaped through the door shouting laminated baseball bats. Then an optometrist, wooden glasses frames, an Englishman, hardwood umbrella handles. Before we could close and lock the door, a crowd of wood lovers from every walk of life had assembled noisily in Tom's shop. Tom decided to take command of the situation. He jumped onto the saw table and menacingly waved a 4-foot, 3-inch length of 2-inch quarter-sawn bubinga, your basic monkey wood, over the heads of those closest to him. Silence, he bellowed. The mob reluctantly mellowed. I have made my decision. We shall make birdhouses. The room burst into applause and enthusiastic cheering. Everyone knew that if there was one thing that could pull us out of pauperdom, it would be, quality-built birdhouses. Birdhouses without compromise. Birdhouses with architectural flair. Birdhouses to appeal to all. The word had been delivered. We would make fabulous birdhouses. But first we have to finish Tom's house. Are you having fun? I'm having fun. I'm even smiling. That was just a little bit of the entertainment that I could get in a faraway place. Herb didn't sit down to do anything halfway. I will always hold Herb in my heart because that's where we met, in the heart. I have to think that Herb's sudden and too early death at 27 meant that he was called to a higher purpose than even being Herb Lockwood. Because of the moments in art and connection and life that we shared, I have faith that the truth and beauty and humor he always sought is what our higher purpose is. I'm so deeply grateful to Todd and the donors to the fund for establishing this honor in Herb's memory. The recipients would have met Herb in the heart too.
Thank you, Melissa. That was terrific. And now I'd like to welcome author Stephen Kiernan. He's been with this since the beginning. Stephen is the author of numerous acclaimed novels, including The Baker's Secret, The Hummingbird, The Curiosity and Universe of Two. Please welcome Stephen Kiernan.
Okay, thanks. This is fun for me. Normally, I get to do the Herb part, and which I love doing, and that was just a great classic Herb letter. And today, instead, I get to do Todd's part. I'm not exactly sure why, but I'm delighted. And that is to talk about the recipient. So I have to start with the idea of a second cut. And if you know anything about farming, you know the second cut is the second hay that you cut down. Okay, so this year's winner has a poem called A Second Cut, which is about haying, but manages to be about many other things as well. And so one of the things it does, that poem does, is give the definition of a poem. A thing full of blackbirds bolting from the maple. Hermit thrushes, always in pairs. First one, then the second. That hawk sailing over it all. This day so hot, it's like a painting. That definition doesn't just describe poems, it describes this poet's poems in particular. Humble but energetic, keenly aware of nature, mindful of what might be soaring overhead, and all of it informed by these escaping blackbirds of imagination. Some history. This year's winner went to St. Michael's College and promptly flunked out. Yes, and then after a stint at Middlesex Community College in Massachusetts, she returned to St. Mike's and graduated on the Dean's List. Later, she earned a master's degree in fine arts from Warren Wilson College. Her work has appeared in American Poetry Review, the American Academy of Poets Poem a Day series, Below Poetry Journal, The Collagist, Fail Better, Four-Way Review, Green Mountains Review, Hunger Mountain, New England Review, Painted Bride Quarterly, Pank, Plowshares, Poet Lore, Prairie Schooner, Pranic, a magazine of contemporary poetry published in Nepal, Rattle, The Salon, Sixth Inch, Swim, spelled with two W's, and Tinderbox. Probably there are more. The length of this list might convince you that this writer is prolific, but her body of work is not immense. A chapbook called Keep This to Yourself, the collection Landscape with Plywood Silhouettes, and her latest American Wake. Yet the acclaim that she has received would seem more fitting for someone with twice as many books. A National Endowment for the Arts Literature Fellowship, inclusion in Best American Poetry in 2012, winning the inaugural Vermont Book Award, and this year qualifying for a finalist for the Vermont Book Award again, and the New England Book Award. Two of her poems were included in Roads Taken, Contemporary Vermont Poetry, which is an excellent collection edited by Vermont Poets Laureate Chard Denord and Sidney Lee. This book, by the way, I should just say as an aside, demonstrates the astonishing poetry that's being written in Vermont these days, especially by women. Get your hands on this one. It's called Roads Taken. What are her poems like? They blend a muscular directness with apt metaphors. A poem about an ex-lover, perhaps, begins this way. Dear train wreck, dear terrible engines, dear spilled freight, dear unbelievable mess. All these years later, I think to write back. The emotion of these lines occurs with incredible density, right? Disdain for the person, symbolism for the damage that happened, and some new feeling that makes the poem possible. Too much contemporary poetry is secretive, opaque, rendered in a private language, not this year's winner. She writes poems that seek to be understood. That is especially true in her book American Wake, with its title a play on the Irish Wake. This book concentrates on two themes that in hands with lesser skills could risk being sentimental, and in this case lead to everything from epiphany to heartbreak. A return to her family's origins in Ireland and the death of her brother from a drug overdose. Isn't it time, unfortunately, for America to have a poetry about opiates, one that is courageous and strong? And isn't this search for home in history part of how we reckon with the strangeness and displacement of these times? These poems wrestle with difficulty and do not always find joy, but they do discover and enlighten and name with fierce precision. Here's a portion of her poem, Weeks After My Brother Overdoses, which manages to be both personal and societal simultaneously. I keep thinking I am not a sister anymore. No one will let me have my sadness or tally what I've lost. I make lists like recipes for how to go on alone. I draw his death when I doodle, making little crime scenes, as if this epidemic were a murderer, a suspect, a criminal. I draw him on the sidewalk to inflate the numbers, to give my brother to everyone. Inside the outline, I do some math. I add him to 72,000. I subtract him from me. Excellence has been a hallmark of every winner of the Herb Lockwood Prize. That is one of the key criteria that this person performs her art at the highest level. The other essential ingredient is that this person has not worked for herself only, but has inspired and uplifted and used the arts to create community. This year's winner has done precisely that by teaching for 30 years at Montpelier High School and now at the Center for Technology in Essex. This profession is notable for many reasons. First, with her credentials, she could be a college professor. Instead, she's chosen to work with writers earlier in their development, when they are fledglings. The newness of their work and their hopes requires nurturing, empathy, a light touch. Second, teaching is a tough business these days, from the challenges of remote learning to the many non-academic needs that students bring with them to school, to the reach and attacks by arch-conservative media on classes and schools that accept students as they are. But when her automotive tech kids stay late in class because they are all enraptured by the books they are reading, she goes to social media to crow about the joyful rewards of enlarging young minds. Herb Lockwood would love this. In honor of her the works that her many blackbirds have created, and in recognition of the many poems we know lie ahead, on this, the 9th year of the Herb Lockwood Prize, we are proud to award it to a singular talent and a Vermont treasure, Kerrin McCadden.
So this is the Herb Lockwood Prize award that we give every year. And then there's another little piece to this as well. We have a check for $10,000.
Oh boy. Thank you. Whew. Thank you. Can you hear me? Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you. I'm supposed to come up and be grateful, and I don't even know how to use words right now. So I'm really honored. Thank you for coming, first of all of you who are here. Thank you for coming to my party is the first line of my speech. I can't even tell you how much this award means to me, but of course I'm going to try. Poetry is such a weird art. Poems are tiny and huge. They matter and they don't. They name the world and they also take it apart. The rules of the game change all the time, from poem to poem, each poem a new invention. Poets write poems to praise the trees and to change the fabric of society. Poets write to make sense of the world, and then readers complain that poems don't make sense. I paid that guy to laugh. But every poem is written in isolation and reaches out towards someone else. Poetry in this way is weirdly social, built in isolation, but made to reach out to readers, and hopefully then to be carried from reader to reader. Every poem has inside it this wish. In the weeks since I learned I'd be standing here today, I've been thinking about what it takes to be an artist. There's the draw to the form, whichever one you choose, the drone of repetition and practice, and the spark of knowing something is happening. There's the honing and whittling and the walking away to regain perspective. You have to have some faith that others will care at all about what you've built, but you also have to decide that you don't care what others think. And you have to have some fun too, throwing your materials around. I think, though, above all, you need to have space for imagination, a big, luxurious amount of time and space in which to dream up whatever contraption, poem, dance, song, sculpture, libretto, whatever you want to build next. And you need people who believe in what you're doing. None of this happens without support. No artist back through time could do what they did without the time, resources, and luxury to do it. Thank you to Herb Lockwood's family who supported him and now me. Thank you to my family for both inspiration and support. Thank you to my mom and dad who never doubted me and made sure I knew my stories and taught me to be tenacious and kind. Thank you to my children, Emma, Cal, and James, for their magic and their many passions, always reminding me to follow mine for my own sake and for theirs. I could not be more proud of them. Thank you to my husband, Cliff, for his outright and persistent belief in me and for the spark of his imagination, his intelligence, and his wit. Thank you to my colleagues, my writer and teacher friends who show how a life in this art can be made, that literature matters, and to my students who have been helping me answer the question, what is a poem, for decades. Thank you even to my very old dog, Willie. I told you I'd thank the dog, who has sat next to me on the red couch while I have written every single thing. And I think I would be remiss in not thanking Vermont itself, where it is possible to flourish as an artist, not only because of its ridiculous beauty and contrasts, but also because of Vermont's arts culture, specifically its poetry culture, where it is possible always to find community and a leg up. I think we live in a world that needs the prayer of art in every form. We need any spark we can find to give us pause or power, every piece of evidence that we can make a difference or see anything in our own right, any new vision or connection. We are charged to love this place in all the ways we can invent. Herb Lockwood came to Vermont 2 years before I did. He was making his impact here while I was trying to figure out how to be anything at all. I was busy flunking out of college. I am grateful for everyone along the way who taught me I could have this life. I had a professor who would regularly say, there is always more work to be done, and this is the only truth. I suspect it is what drove Herb Lockwood in his stunning work, and what drives his family to honor his memory with this award. Thank you to the spirit of Herb Lockwood, who continues to inspire. We have only this one life, and what an honor it is to use it in the name of art. That's it. What?